Hey, this is Jules from Entrepreneur Empire. This episode was recorded on the Clubhouse app Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, and the topic was 10 must-have digital marketing tools for solo entrepreneurs. This discussion includes Jaleel, a young entrepreneur based out of Maryland running multiple six-figure businesses, and Anne-Marie Oreo out of Pennsylvania, real estate investor who just closed 10 deals.
Hi, Jaleel.
Hey, what's up?
These are heavy hitters, man. Join us every Tuesday on the Clubhouse app from 8 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. We talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about real estate, we talk about digital marketing, and so much more.
That'll be good.
But if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Someone with Slack.
Oh, yeah. Busy.
We'll do it live. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about 10 must-have digital marketing tools for entrepreneurs. What's my should I call it? How do you call it? My credentials on this topic. My credentials on this topic are the fact that I've done campaigns for a couple of names you might have heard of, believe it or not, Microsoft, IBM. I've done campaigns. I've had campaigns in Entrepreneur Magazine. I didn't do campaigns for them, but I've had campaigns that were featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, on entrepreneur.com, all the et ceteras. So, with that being said, this is, digital marketing tools is something I've been using consistently over the course of the last, 10 plus years, to some positive effect, right? I believe I've got some fairly good results, as well as some amazing results for not only myself, for clients, for employers, all the et cetera. So that's what we're jumping into today. Does that sound like a decent topic? Is that something you guys can use? Some information you guys can use?
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's start with number one. We're going to go through all 10, and I might even have like a bonus one or two for you guys, but we'll start with number one. Number one would be Hotjar. I think I've mentioned this, at least to you, Jaleel. I know for sure I mentioned it to you. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, Anne-Marie. But Hotjar essentially is a tool that, how would I describe Hotjar? So essentially Hotjar is, assuming you have a website. Let me preface with that, right? Most of these tools would benefit someone who has some sort of internet presence, whether it be a website or a landing page or something to that effect. So
If
the
they
way
don't-
Hotjar,
Hey,
go
Jules,
ahead.
if they don't have a website, where should they go to get a website pretty easily? Like, do you recommend Fiverr, hiring someone to do that?
Good question. Great question, actually. So there's a number of ways you could do it. Most of what I'm talking about here, I'm trying to direct it to what I call solo entrepreneurs. So these are people that probably don't want to hire anybody, or even if they do, they want to do it at a very limited budget. Really, for me, solo entrepreneur to me means someone who's pretty much going to do everything themselves, right? But if they do want to hire somebody, sure, go to Fiverr. You should be able to find somebody on Fiverr that can at least set up a landing page for you, which is basically like a one-page website. At a minimum, they should be able to do that for anywhere from a good one for anywhere from $25 to maybe $50, right, on Fiverr. Fiverr is a good option. I'm actually the number 9 because I got them listed here in front of me. I wrote it down like 20 minutes ago. But number 9 is kind of going to address like what you can do if you don't have a website. But I'll start with Hotjar. Assuming you do have a website, what Hotjar does is it tracks the behavior of the people that come to your website. So one word you're going to hear me use a lot today is the word cookie. A cookie is basically, some internet nerd magic that happens behind the scenes on a website that tracks clicks, it tracks where people are scrolling, it tracks if they visited the website before, it tracks a whole lot of things. Cookies is something that in politics you might hear a lot about it with Facebook and all these other, as far as like the topic of privacy and things like that, that all comes down to cookies. So what Hotjar does is Hotjar, whether or not you have cookies on whether or not cookies are installed into the user's actual system, it can still track what they do while they're on the website. So wherever their mouse goes, let's say you have a website that has, matter of fact, I'm going to use Jaleel as an example. Jaleel, who's on the call with us, has a moving business website, and it has multiple different pages, multiple different sections. So if Jaleel has Hotjar on that website, he knows what pages on that site, what tabs, what links get the most traffic. Why is that useful? That's useful because if somebody, let's say 100 people come to your site, 90 of them are skipping over your, they're completely ignoring your shopping cart. That tells you something, right? Or they're completely skipping your, wherever you put your, let's call it a call to action, like something that says sign up here, or whatever it is that you want them to do, whether it's call you, pay for something, buy something on the website, etc. Whatever that call to action is, let's say 90% of your visitors are skipping that. How would you even know? You would know with a tool like Hotjar, because Hotjar literally tracks every single person. You can go into Hotjar and even literally watch them. Like you can watch videos of up to the last person that the last user that was on your website and all the different things that they visited, that they clicked on, all the etc. Can you guys kind of picture how that would be useful?
Oh, definitely.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, I can. Batches, how much is that monthly, if you know off the top of your head?
So the majority of these tools I'm going to talk about have a free version and then have paid versions. Hotjar for sure I know has a free version, and what they do is up to a certain amount of visits. It's free up to a certain amount of visits. If I'm not mistaken, it's like maybe 100 or so, which is super useful because as a metric, 100 visitors is just enough to kind of get an idea of what's really happening. Like 10 visitors, that's not enough, right? That's not a good enough sample size to kind of dictate what's working, what's not. But 100, that's perfect. As far as pricing, I want to say if you're going to use the paid version of Hotjar, there's like a $30 version, an $80 version, et cetera, et cetera. And it all depends on how many visitors you can expect on your website and all that good stuff.
Do you
Go ahead,
are
Joe.
you do you find value in the $30 you spend for that, or $80 that you spend for that monthly?
I'll put it this way: if you find value in it in the free version, yes, you'll definitely find value in the paid version. So that's the way I would dictate it. I encourage everybody to always, or any client of mine, I always encourage them to get the free version of something first, and that will answer that specific, exactly what you just asked. That will answer that. So, for example, on Hotjar, let's say the basic free version gives you 20 sessions a day or something to that effect. After 5 days, you'll have, assuming you have 20 visitors, after 5 days, you'll have 100 sessions. And that in itself, if you're able to glean any data, any data from that, if you're able to make any business decisions based off of what you see, then that in itself should answer for you, because it's going to be, it's unique to everybody. That'll answer for you whether or not you want to upgrade to pay $30 a month for it, because all the $30 a month is going to do is allow you to just have more. They'll track more sessions for you than they would on the free version, right?
Okay.
So essentially, let's say the free version gives you about 100 sessions a day, and the paid version, the paid $30 version, gives you $100 sessions a day, and the free version gives you 25 sessions a day. Okay, so if you don't feel like paying for it, just spread those 25 sessions over 4 days. But if you feel like going all in, you've already been doing it, you're getting value out of it, sure, pay the $30 a month and get up to what's the math here, about 3,000 sessions, be able to record 3,000 sessions a month, right? Here's the other question. Here's another way somebody can answer that question for themselves. Are you even getting 3,000 visitors to your page a month, right?
Okay.
Right. So if you are getting 3,000 visitors to your page a month, sure, go with the free version so you can track every single one of them. If you're getting 30 visitors a day, then yeah, go with the free version, right?
Gotcha.
So Hotjar is something I've been screaming from the mountaintops for at least 15 years. I've been telling everybody that has a website, get Hotjar. Now, as far as installing Hotjar, a lot of these tools we're going to talk about today, installing any given one of them might take a little bit of technical know-how. It looks much more intimidating than it actually is. And I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this and you need help installing Hotjar and you have a website, I'll do it for you, no cost. Just hit me up, DM me, whatever. But it's super simple to do if you feel like doing it on your own. So that's number one, Hotjar. Any questions on that?
I'm in.
No problem. So any questions on Hotjar? No? I know I'm
Nope.
moving kind of fast. I don't know if...
No, you're good.
Nope.
All right, cool.
That'll work.
All right, so the second tool, Canva. Either of you heard of Canva before?
Yep.
Canva's a staple.
Canva is a staple, exactly. So that's why I consider it one of the top 10 must-have tools. What is Jaleel? What do you use Canva for?
I use it for all of my digital marketing creation. Like, say for
Mhm.
instance, we need to create a flyer, we need to create a social media post, we want to create pretty much like a stationery for our logo, to create job hiring flyers, things like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Anne Marie, do you use it too?
Yeah, for marketing pieces, and a lot of times where I'm building my marketing brochure, I need a my picture already done, or
Yep.
cropped in, or like things cropped around it, and Canva is good for that.
It's awesome for that. I've
I
used
have the
Canva.
free version. I know that the paid version offers a lot more.
Yeah. What the paid version basically just it offers you the same thing. You'll essentially you're getting the same thing on the paid version that you would get on the free version. The
Hmm.
paid version just gives you a few extra, like because Canva is very big on templates, right? Like
Yeah.
it's super template centric, which is what's useful about it. Because here's the thing: when we're talking about it's a graphic design tool. At the end of the day, is what it is. It's a graphic design tool. Now, there's hundreds of graphic design tools out there, and again, we're talking about solo entrepreneurs. We're talking about people that are doing everything themselves. So, Anne-Marie, do you have the time to go learn Photoshop?
No.
And yet, Photoshop is the premier graphic design tool, right? But
Yeah.
Yep.
as a solo entrepreneur, you ain't got time for that, nor should you have time for that. You should stick to
Hmm.
what you know. If you do have a limited amount of time that you can, attribute to creating pieces, Canva is it because Canva uses templates. So a lot of the materials are already there. A lot of the pieces, I should say, are already there. You just got to kind of mix and match and get it to fit you. The
Hmm.
paid version of Canva is going to give you access to a little bit more, to more templates and things like that. So you might not use the same templates that everybody else that's using the free version is using. Gives you a little bit of branding capability. We've talked about that before, right? The other thing that Canva does, you can use it on the topic of branding. You can definitely use it to kind of keep your brand contained because some of the templates that it has, as you customize your own templates, you can then keep track of very certain colors that you're using, certain fonts that you're using, certain images that you're using, and then you can keep them consistent across, any different medium that you're using. So, for example, the same graphic that you used on Facebook, you can shape it and use it for a PowerPoint presentation. You can shape it and use it for a YouTube video, all the etc. All the I'll be totally transparent with you. The what do you call them? The YouTube thumbnails that I've been making for these Entrepreneur Empire uh, events. Every one of them I made on Clubhouse on Canva,
Yep.
right? And I think they look decent, right? They don't look bad,
Hmm.
and they're consistent. Why? Because Canva, right? So that's Canva. Canva, in case anybody was wondering. Canva.com, Canva.com. Any questions on Canva?
Nope.
All
Nope.
right. I just
Oh,
realized
well,
we got. Go ahead, Julio.
I would just say with Canva, it is so powerful, and I say that because it drastically decreases the amount of time that you spend for social media. And here's like a quick tip that I use to really quick start and keep my stuff really fast
Right.
is that I'll create a logo template that I would just throw on any of my images that I use for my cleaning more moving business, and I'll use that for our social media posts. I use that for our website. I use it for our Instagram, our Twitter, our Google My Business profiles, all of the
Yep.
above. And the little badge that I create, it you can place it anywhere. You can resize it. You can change the background color of it. You can put it in a template so it has like nice border and it keeps all your posts looking organized and professional. And these are
Yep.
all things that you have to pay, like a social media manager 52. I just got a quote for one. She wanted $50 a week. That's $200 a month. But it takes me all of 5 minutes to make enough social media information for the month.
Yep.
Um, so it's very powerful. One of the first subscriptions you should ever invest in your business.
Facts. One other thing about Canva too is I failed to mention is that all these different social media platforms, you can post to them directly from Canva.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, yep. I
Right,
saw
so
Facebook. So you can post to a handful?
to which one? I'm sorry.
You can post to a bunch?
Yeah,
I had seen. Nice. That's nice. Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. As well as you can even, so there was on one occasion, it was for somebody right here on Clubhouse actually. We were doing I basically like a webinar for her, for a person that one of the subject matter experts here on Clubhouse. So it was her very first webinar. We did it straight from Canva. Like as far as the slides, we did everything straight from Canva. So basically,
Nice.
the best way I can explain it is that I used it like a PowerPoint slide or whatever presentation, and you do it right there from Canva, from Canva.com, and it literally, the behavior was just like the whole screen. It took up the whole screen. Every click was a new slide. There were animations. There were all of that, and it looked. Again, this is me tooting my own horn, but I think it looked pretty good. So, a lot of different ways you can use Canva. And we're just scratching the surface, but I got to move quick because we only got 60 minutes and we got 10 tools. Next tool. So this is one. These are actually two different tools, but they fulfill the same purpose. Hootsuite or Sprout Social. And I personally don't have any preference between the two. I've had employers that use Sprout Social. I've had employers that use Hootsuite. It is whatever. What are they? They're social media management platforms. So, in other words, the same way, well, not exactly the same way as Canva, but for example, on Canva, you can post directly to any given social media platform from Canva. Hootsuite and Sprout Social allow you to do that same thing, but they allow you to do it on Calendar, right? So Jaleel was just talking about creating social media content for an entire month. Either of these tools, Hootsuite or Sprout Social, will do that for you. So in other words, you go into Hootsuite, you you put your post on a calendar, and at any given day, at any given time that you've already scheduled, or even at random, you can leave it up to Hootsuite. It'll post for you, right? Because think about it, if you want to post to Twitter consistently for a month, that requires you going into Twitter. If you're not using a tool, that requires you going into Twitter at a specific time on a specific day and posting, creating your content or posting your content, and then doing the same across Facebook, across all the others, right? That can be time consuming. Hootsuite, Sprout Social, they do these things for you. On top of that, they give you certain metrics and certain statistics about what the best times are to post your content, who's responding to your content, all sorts of analytics and metrics, which I'm huge on. And I'll say this again at some point during this event. What can't be measured, what can't be counted, can't be measured, can't be improved. Right. So these sort of things, this sort of data, these sort of metrics that Hootsuite and Sprout Social give you, super useful in terms of, is my content? Yeah, you're putting out content, but are people engaging with it? What are they engaging with the most? What are they engaging with the least? All that good stuff. So both of these again have free versions and have paid versions that you can run with. Or if I'm not mistaken, might even have like a 30-day trial or something to that effect. But either one will work. So that's Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE, and Sprout Social, SPROUT, Sprout Social. So far, so good.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah. It's funny because I literally just wrote both of those down because I was actually looking for a scheduler. Just so my my VA can just post them. Just upload them to the scheduler, and we can just do it preemptively for every week. So I appreciate that one.
No problem. And that okay. So I'm glad you said that because I failed to mention that you can do it with a team as well. Because it's one thing if a user, if it's one thing if you're a solo entrepreneur and you're just going to post everything yourself. If you're fortunate enough to have a VA or some sort of team that works with you, either of these tools will allow them to post on your behalf, on your brand's behalf, all the etc., so that you don't have to actually give them access to your actual account, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. All right. So these next two kind of go hand in hand, number 4 and 5. Google Analytics and Google AdWords. All right, so Google Analytics as a tool. Either of you using Google Analytics?
Yep.
What about you, Anne-Marie?
Not actively. No.
Okay. All right. So Google Analytics, what is it? It's a web analytics service offered by Google. What does it do? It tracks reports, website traffic. So literally any visit that your website gets, Google Analytics is going to tell you when they got there, how long they stayed, which is known as bounce rate. What else is it going to tell you? What pages they went through. Let's say, for example, here's one very useful thing. I just did this recently with Google Analytics. I'll use Jaleel as an example. Jaleel has a web page that has a website that has multiple pages on it. Google Analytics will tell Jaleel where there's drop off, right? What is drop off? Drop off is I come to Jaleel's website through the homepage, then I click on pricing, then I go to about us, then I leave. So the drop off happened on about us, right? So Google Analytics, again, going back to 100 visitors, if you've got 100 visitors, it's going to tell you where the drop off is happening. Can you guys imagine how that would be useful?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right? It shows you your back doors. Where are people leaving? Where are they spending the most time? Here's the other thing it does. What type of people are visiting? So because Google is Big Brother, right? Google can tell you what percentage of your visitors are male, what percentage are female. It'll give you all sorts of demographic information about your visitors, right? So let's say you have a shop that a Shopify website and you're selling lipstick, right? Are the majority of you'll assume that the majority of your visitors are going to be female. Are they? What percentage? What time are they coming to your site? What systems are they using to access your website? By that I mean, are the majority of your website visitors using a phone, using a mobile? Are they on a laptop? Are they on a laptop and or desktop? Are they on a tablet? Why is that useful? Because think about the design of your website. If your website was built for people that are on a desktop, but 80% of your visitors are on mobile, that's something you need to address. The people that are on mobile, are they able to look at your site with the same, basically, are they able to access your site with no issues the same way they would on a desktop, right? Buttons that they can click. Let's say, for example, you have a website that has all kind of fancy features, like as far as if you hover over, if you hover over this picture, it changes and does this and does that and makes all kinds of sounds. That's not going to happen on mobile because there is no hover on mobile, right? So are 80% of your visitors even taking advantage of that, right? So it gives you that sort of analytics, that sort of data to determine, the performance of your website, essentially.
And Jules' question.
Yep.
So you can do that no matter what, because people use Google as their search engine. It's not like you have to have, it's not like you have to be set up for, what's it called? Pay per click with Google search, right? It's just in general, you should have it, right?
Yeah, no. So actually, that's a great question. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're essentially asking. Well, I think you're assuming that people would have to have used Google search to get to your website for Google Analytics to track it. Is that what you're asking?
No, basically, when I was using Google Analytics, it was when I was doing pay per click with Google. But I'm just trying to make the point, and tell me if this is correct. You don't need, or you use it for any time as long as you have a website, because people are going to be clicking on Google, and then it's going to show you how many people are coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether they're coming to your site from Google or not, though.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, any visitors whatsoever.
Okay, so they click through Chrome.
Whether they're on Chrome, that's the other thing it'll tell you. It'll tell you, are they using Chrome? Are they using Safari? Are they using Firefox? It'll tell you all of that. It's independent of any given traffic source. Wherever that visitor comes from, as long as they're on your site, it'll track it and it'll give you all sorts of information about their visit.
Okay.
Now you mentioned you mentioned PPC and pay per click. So that's why I mentioned Google Analytics and Google AdWords together. They're actually two separate tools, but Google AdWords is supported by Google Analytics Or you can actually, I know people that use Google AdWords without ever looking at their Google Analytics, because a lot of the same content and information is in AdWords, but specific to the campaigns that they're running. So you mentioned pay-per-click, also known as PPC. For those that don't know, pay-per-click basically means that if you have an ad on online, if you have an ad on Google, and somebody clicks on it, that's when you pay for the ad. You don't pay for the ad just because they saw it. You pay because they clicked on it and went to whatever landing page or website you directed them to, right? So once they arrive there, the reason I suggest using Google AdWords and Google Analytics in conjunction is because one supports the other. One essentially supports the other. Google AdWords will tell you very specific details about conversion rates and all of that good stuff, only associated to a campaign that you're running. Whereas analytics will give you the global view. It will give you the holistic view of whether they came from an ad or whether they came to your site organically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going to be running ads, which I feel like any serious entrepreneur should do, the question is what kind of ads and how much ad spend, but we'll get to that. If you're going to be running ads, especially with Google Analytics, Google AdWords, these are two tools that are must-have as part of your whole toolkit. So that's 5. Brings us to number 6. Well, any more questions on Google Analytics or Google AdWords?
Nope.
Cool. Number 6, Facebook Business Manager. So Facebook Business Manager, I would call it basically the Facebook version of Google AdWords, right? What it does is Facebook Business Manager gives you access to Facebook Ads Manager, Facebook Business Suite, a lot of different features within Facebook that allow any given entrepreneur and or business to organize and manage, their business on Facebook. So why is that? Why wouldn't Google just be enough? Maybe it could. I wouldn't blame any given entrepreneur if they only wanted to run ads on Google. That's fine. I guess that'd be their niche, and they'd focus on that. But running Facebook, the thing about the Facebook audience and the advantage that Facebook has, they both have advantages and disadvantages. The advantage that Facebook has is Facebook actually knows just as much about its audience, if not more, than Google does, right? Google attracts certain people when they come to your site, and it can tell you all about them when they came to you, about what they look like and what they were using to access your site and where they went, et cetera, et cetera. Facebook Business Manager is going to tell you that, but it's also going to tell you a little bit about who they are, what their interests are, who you be with. I was about to rap some Biggie right there, but essentially it'll tell you all sorts of stuff about them as a person, right? And how does it know that? It knows that because, again, back to the whole Big Brother concept, Zuckerberg is sitting there tracking everything about everybody that has a Facebook account, unfortunately and fortunately. So you leverage that as a business owner because let's say, for example, you want to target, Anne-Marie, I'm going to use you as an example here. You want to target people that are in Lehigh, right? People that are selling people that are interested in selling a house or selling their house and they live in Lehigh County, right? Facebook would be very useful for that because Facebook knows exactly who lives in Lehigh County. It knows who's joined, different groups related to selling houses or been looking at that sort of content, et cetera, et cetera. Facebook is just another version of Facebook Business Manager, I should say. Just another version of Google AdWords, but specifically focused on Facebook users, the Facebook audience. Facebook has mastered audience in segmenting, in my opinion, far better than Google has, but it's kind of the nature of what they do. Any questions so far as why you would need Facebook Business Manager?
Nope.
Okay.
No, but I don't have a question, but which one would you advise for entrepreneurs to use, AdWords or Facebook? Just from your personal opinion, for advertising, which one do you think is more effective?
Yeah. So again, it depends on what they're what. Give me an example of what of a business owner and what they do, and I'll respond that way.
So digital marketing. Which one would you advise for digital marketing? Facebook or Google?
Like
Google.
if somebody has a digital marketing business,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a digital marketing business, Google. Google AdWords. Why Google AdWords? If you got a digital marketing business, it's kind of built in that you already know that the majority of your business is going to come from people that are searching for certain topics, right? They're searching for answers on Google, right? They're actively, I'll give you an example. Earlier today, we were doing some searches on how to be a travel agent, right? Or, yeah, we'll go with that. Somebody's online and they're searching how to be a travel agent. If your client, sorry?
Oh, I'm listening.
Yeah, you're searching online. Google's going to tell you how many people are doing that search in any given month, right? Across the time span of a month. It could be 10,000 people. It could be 20,000 people. It could be 50 people, right? But that's information you need to know. With that information, you then decide, okay, is that a large enough pond for you to fish in, right? For you to spend money in. Are you willing to pay $1.84 per click on a search that only happens 100 times a month? Are you willing to pay $5 a click on a search that happens 100,000 times a month, right? Two different pool sizes, two different pond sizes, two different costs. This is something that you got to kind of dictate. So the long answer to your question is, depending on the type of business you have and who your end user is, who your customer is, depending on where you know you're going to find your customer, where the majority of them are, that's the one that you should start with, at least start with. I encourage people to use both, but if you're only going to start with one, start with the one that you know has your audience. So, again, I'll go back to Anne Marie's case. Anne Marie is looking for people looking to sell their house. Again, it might be Google, because she might be targeting people that are searching. What's a keyword? What's a phrase? Anne Marie's audience might type in Google. They might type
Sell my
how to
house.
sell my house.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Sell my house fast.
Sell my house fast. Boom. There you go. That phrase, that exact phrase, sell my house fast. Those 4 words equal a keyword phrase. We go into Google AdWords and we figure out how many people are actually searching that every month, and then from there you can kind of make decisions on how you want to market to them. Facebook, meanwhile, while it might not have, people don't go into Facebook and search how to sell my house fast, but Facebook knows the audience. Don't ask me how, but they know the audience that has done that search. Does that make sense? So Google is where they do the search, and Facebook is where the people that did the search are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of scary when you think about like that. They track and just keep resource on every single thing we do.
I'll put it this way. This is something I learned very early on in terms of the internet and things that go on the internet and e-commerce and all of that. It's a very simple concept. If the product is free, you are the product.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Facebook is free. If you're on Facebook for free, which it is, you are the product.
Oh yeah. That's so true. That really clicks. That really helps you understand it.
Yeah. So again, the only difference, I guess that's what I would boil it down to in terms of deciding which one you want to use first, Facebook ads or Google ads. Google ads is where your audience is going to do the search. Facebook ads is who is doing the search. It's a very segmented piece of who's doing the actual searching, right? So it's just a question of, do you want to catch the fish? I'm not a fisherman. I don't know why I use so many fishing analogies, but I guess it's a matter of, do you want to catch the I don't know how to put it, but essentially it's just a matter of like where you want to fish, essentially. Where you think you're going to get the bigger reward.
Right. And Facebook, you can bring them to you. Like, so you can with Google also, but it's more personalized with Facebook. I mean, you can go to different groups, post something there, and bring that to you.
Correct. Absolutely. Bring them back to your page. And by page, I mean like your Facebook page, or bring them back to your actual website, wherever that might be, or your landing page, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's number 5 and number 6. That's 4, 5, and 6. Number 7, SEM rush. So now what we're going into is we've covered kind of like tracking people's behavior, tracking your audience's behavior, going after your audience, etc. SEM rush is basically a platform where you're now going to decide what bait to use to capture this audience. So going back to fishing analogies, SEMrush and the next tool that I'm going to talk about are both tools that you use for bait, right? So what do I mean by that? So now we're getting into what's called content marketing. Content marketing is a small section of digital marketing as a whole, and what it involves is putting out content to attract clients, right? Content that's useful to your audience, content that solves their pain, solve their pain points, whatever pain point they might be having. Anne Marie gave an example earlier. How to sell my house fast, right? What's the pain point there, Anne Marie?
Well, they might be in foreclosure. They might have to relocate, and they can't list their property on the market. It would take too long. They want a cash offer quickly for one reason or another, a particular convenience reason.
Right. So in the common denominator across all of those reasons is speed. They're looking for a very quick transaction. So their pain point is speed, it's time. How to sell their house quickly. You know, you could if that wasn't their pain point, they would just type in how to sell my house.
Right.
So the fact that they put in quickly or fast, obviously that becomes their pain point. That adjective becomes their pain point. So where does SEMrush how is that useful? And the spelling, by the way, is literally SEMRUSH, SEMrush. Where that becomes useful is you can then use SEM as a tool to figure out what your audience's pain points are. If I go into SEMrush right now and I type in how to sell houses fast or how to sell my house fast, it's then going to give me a whole variety. It's going to give me a lot of information. First of all, it's going to tell me how many the size, the amount of searches that are happening for that for any given keyword phrase, including how to sell my house fast. It'll tell you where the majority of those searches are going, right? Like who's getting the chunk of those clicks when they organic, whether it's paid or whether it's organic. It'll give you a metric as far as how difficult that keyword phrase might be to go after. So if I'm going to go back to the fishing analogy, is the effort worth fishing in this pond? Is this a pond that you want to spend the amount of effort that it will require to get fish from this pond, right? For that, they'll give you a score. So for example, let's say it's a 70 score. It's from 0 to 100. SEMrush is going to tell you, hey, this particular keyword phrase, if you want to rank highly, and again, this is all about ranking, right? This is about search rankings. If you want to rank highly in this for this keyword, it's a 76. It's going to take you a lot more effort for this keyword phrase than it would for this other keyword phrase that might only score at maybe a 20, right? So it's almost the same amount of, may or may not be the same amount of traffic, right? The same amount of fish for less effort, for far less bait, far less, you could fish over here with a fish and a stick. I mean, with a stick in a string, but over here you might need some sort of fancy equipment, right? So all things that you need to kind of decide as far as your SEO and your content, right? That's SEMrush. Man, I'm moving fast, so you guys got to tell me if there's any kind of questions or anything.
You're good.
Okay.
No, I think the issue, I'm pretty familiar with these things, so I don't have any questions, and I can't really think from a perspective of me not knowing what they are.
Okay.
So I think that might be my hold up. But yeah, all the information you're giving is great. I love it.
So SEO, remember, SEMrush essentially is good for your SEO. It's good for your PPC. Use it for keyword research. Use it for competitive research. So Jaleel, you got a moving company. Where are your competitors ranking? How much are they spending on their PPC? How much are they spending on SEO? These are all how many what kind of backlinks do they have? How many websites are linking to their website? What are those websites? Why does that matter? Because if you know what those websites are, you go after those same websites. Interception, right? Like this is, these are all the different types of insight that something like SEMrush can give you. So super powerful tool. Next tool, also for very useful for SEO in particular. It's called I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's spelled
Ahrefs.
Ahrefs. Is that how people call it? Ahrefs?
Yep.
All right. Ahrefs. So Ahrefs Same, very similar to SEMrush. Maybe a little bit more. Actually, I'm not sure which one costs more. But again, both of them have like free plans and etc. But it's essentially same sort of thing. They both of these sites, both of these tools are platforms that have been indexing websites since indexing websites. What does that mean? That means literally the same thing that Google does, as far as just sending AI across the internet and looking at literally every single website. These platforms, both of these platforms, have been doing the same thing, as well as paying attention to what Google is paying attention to. So that's kind of is under the hood information as far as where they're getting their data from. This is stuff that they've been doing for a long time. So Ahrefs will help you with keyword research. Should I go after longer keywords? Should I go after shorter keywords? High volume, short volume, same kind of thing. Where should I fish? Right? Where should I be fishing? Essentially. That's 8. Let's go into number 9. Unless there's any more questions about Ahrefs.
Nope.
It's a backlink checker. Is that correct?
That's one of the tools. That's one of the things that it does. It can check your backlinks. Yes.
Okay. And what's a backlink?
So backlink is I got a website, and on my website I talk about DJing, how to be a DJ. Now, am I an authority on that subject? This is how Google will decide if I'm an authority on that subject. How many other websites are pointing to my website?
Wow.
That's a backlink. A backlink is any other website or pretty much, let's just call it a website. Any other website that's on the internet that's pointing to your website or any particular page on your website.
Wow. So real quick, Jules, so these 10, 10 tips you think somebody can do on their own as a solo entrepreneur?
Yes.
I digress.
So can they do it well? Right? Can they do it well? Debatable. Can they do it? And by well, I mean, can they do it as good as I can? Again, this is me tooting my own horn, but I'm 10 years deep. Right? Can they do it as well as I can? No. But again, that's I'm a specialist. That's literally what I am. I'm a digital marketing specialist. But again, if I was starting all over and I didn't know anything about digital marketing and I was selling widgets, I would feel well, I'm not a good example, but if I knew someone that was starting from scratch, selling widgets, these 10 tools are tools that I feel I 100% feel like even if they didn't use all of them, they would need to pick and choose their priorities as far as their business, as far as selling widgets, and then we'll start from there. But they're all must have. At some point in time, within the first 6 months to a year of them being in business or doing business online, they would need these 10 tools at some point.
If you want to scale, right? If you want to scale.
If you want to scale.
Right. Because somebody can do it, really scaled back. And, like me, I could go wholesale, a deal here, a deal there, and I don't need this. But if you want to scale and you want to, you're doing digital marketing, then this is what you're saying is really necessary to get you going really well, right?
So let me put it this way, Anne-Marie. Like earlier I asked you, I said, Anne-Marie, do you use Google Analytics? What was your answer?
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay. What exactly to paraphrase you said not actively. Tell me more about that. What does that mean, not actively? And I'll explain why I'm asking.
So I was, when I was running Google ads, when my husband was helping me in the beginning and I was trying the Google pay-per-click route for getting leads. Then, he had the Google analytics set up, which they tell you to do if you're using Google anyway, for click. Right now, I don't have anybody tracking that. I'm not, and I don't have anybody tracking that because I'm focusing on getting my leads right now. And then when I get to the point where if I wanted to scale it really big like that, I personally would need to bring somebody in to do this stuff for me.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If you have a mirror on a wall, do you have to be standing in front of it for it to work?
No.
So same thing with Google Analytics. Fortunately, you were smart enough from the very beginning to install Google Analytics. Going back to your earlier question, are these 10 tools that an entrepreneur must have? Here's why Google Analytics, for example, you must have, and especially from the very beginning. Because from the very beginning, you want to track the growth of your traffic. Now, whether or not you do anything with that information, whether or not you even look at it today, tomorrow, next week, doesn't matter. A year from now, fortunately, if your business is still active a year later, you want to then be able to go back into your Google Analytics and see everything that's happened over the course of that last year. Otherwise, if your Google Analytics wasn't even installed, you're starting from scratch. That's a year worth of information. That's basically time lost. That's a year worth of data that you just don't have.
Yeah.
Right? So having it installed is one thing. Using it is another thing. And then making decisions off of that information, off of what you see. Earlier I was talking about like, hey, is our majority of your users on desktop? Are they on mobile, et cetera, et cetera? That's all information that Google gives you that you then as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, have to make decisions off of. It's not going to make the decisions for you. It'll collect all the data, right? Even while you're sleeping, Google Analytics is going to sit there and collect all the data in real time, right? Because you can go into Google Analytics and see how many people are on your website as we speak, live in real time. It'll track. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, over the course of a year, you set it up. Hopefully, it was set up properly. A year later, you go back and look. You'll be surprised to see all the information that's there. Same thing with Hotjar. Same thing with Hotjar and Google Analytics are in particular are the two that I would suggest a person set up from the beginning.
Okay.
From the minute you have a website, the very second thing you do after you buy the domain or after you buy your domain and your hosting is to install Hotjar and install Google Analytics off rip. There's zero reason to not have those set up immediately. It's almost like buying a house and then you don't have locks on your door or whatever other essential you need on a house after you bought it, right? Like these are things that just they're no-brainers. You absolutely have to have them to make the most of your asset, of your website or whatever it might be. These things are useful for apps too, by the way. We talk about websites a lot here, but let's say you have an app. Let's say you're an entrepreneur that has an app. Google Analytics tracks apps. Hotjar tracks does the same thing for apps. Any app you're using, we're sitting here using Clubhouse. Clubhouse is tracking everything we're doing on Clubhouse using Google Analytics and Hotjar and or some other version of Hotjar. Some other behavior tracking software like that, right? And they're tracking it over thousands of users. So that's why at any given time you'll see Clubhouse is introducing all these new features and moving things around. How are they making those decisions? They're not making those decisions arbitrarily. They're doing it based on data. So, very long answer to can any given entrepreneur use all 10 of these tools? Yes. Can they do it as well as Jules can? No, but that doesn't matter. If you're starting off, just start, right? And we'll scale as we go. These last two tools that I'm going to talk about actually are directly related to scaling, right? Maybe actually not these two. WordPress and Shopify, I'll count those both as number 9, because if you're just going to have a website and you're not necessarily selling anything directly from the website, I would suggest having a WordPress set up. Why WordPress as a tool, as opposed to like a Wix or what else is out there? Squarespace, all these. At the end of the day, to tell you the truth, if either of those is what you want to go with, go for it. Me personally, what I suggest to my clients is WordPress. Why? Back in the day, Jaleel, you might relate to this more. Back in the day, well, actually, no, Jaleel's too young to know. But when I was growing up, you either had a Nintendo or you had a Sega.
No, I was there for that.
So he wasn't there for that. No, you wasn't there. You know what? You're there for Xbox and PS4. So I'll use that.
No,
Today,
I was there for Sega.
you
You
wasn't?
talking about Dream? You talking about Dream?
No, you weren't.
You talking about DreamCube?
Oh, oh my God! Look how young you are. Oh my God, Jaleel, you just made me feel super old, bro. Listen, when I say Sega, I'm talking about Sega.
All right, yeah, never mind. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
I'm
I've
talking
heard
about
of it.
Sega. Period. No model of it. Just Sega.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
little before my time. Okay.
Sega 1.0. I'm talking about, you know what I mean? But the same applies today, whether you have a PlayStation or Xbox. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because typically, depending on who you are, depending on what your friends are using, that's the system you're going to go with. Why? Because if my friend has a Nintendo, I could trade games with my friend that has a Nintendo. We could trade games, right? That's the same reason I suggest WordPress, because in the world of websites, in the world of website platforms, the majority of websites are built using WordPress, right? Compared to other platforms, compared to Wix, compared to all these other places, the majority of them are using WordPress. Why is that useful to you? Because then when it comes time to scale and you're thinking about hiring somebody off of Fiverr, you're thinking about using all these different the tools number 11 through 20 that I'll talk about maybe in the next session, that all integrate with WordPress versus integrate with the Wix, or might not integrate with Wix at all. As far as I'm concerned, Wix is very limited as far as what you can, what tools you can integrate into it. Same thing for Squarespace. All these other platforms are very limited in terms of what add-ons you can put. By add-ons, I mean plugins and things like that other people have created, applications that other developers have created that you can integrate and use with your WordPress and or your Shopify store, right? So you decide for yourself as an entrepreneur. Do I want to use a bicycle that has training wheels on it, or that I can later take off and do all kinds of fancy stuff to, or do I want to buy a tricycle and that's all it's ever going to be?
And can I interject? And I do agree. You can do whatever you feel comfortable with, but I can't stress the fact enough that your website is, you should start out properly. You should start out professionally, and you have our knowledge to kind of go off of. I would definitely 1000% recommend WordPress over Squarespace, over Wix, anything, because the domain name, the URL, that will have their name in the title, and it looks unprofessional. It should have just your title, .com, .org, .net, whatever the case is. You should only have your title in the URL. So on a professional standpoint, I would never recommend ever having Wix or .com, whatever their little extension is. I would never recommend that. With WordPress, you're also given I don't know as far as Squarespace and Wix, but with WordPress, you're given so much more autonomy in regards to the innovation of your website. You can add plugins, you can add themes, you can do templates. You can with WordPress, you can use Elementor, you can use Divi, which are website builders. It's very easy. It's self-taught. I probably spent in total across my whole time of WordPress probably 2 hours of training on WordPress, and that's all it takes for me to be pretty professional at it. So I would recommend WordPress over any of those, but of course, use your discretion. If you're not knowledgeable, feel free to use Wix and Squarespace. But WordPress is the end all be all, point blank, period.
If that didn't convince you, if what Jaleel just said right there didn't convince a person, maybe this will. WordPress is 10 times more effective for SEO than any of those other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Just by the nature of how it's built, of how it's constructed, it's much easier for Google to crawl. By crawl, I mean earlier I was talking about how places like Google and SEMrush and all these other tools literally go through every single website that's on the internet. Um, it's much easier for these tools to go through to access your website if it's built on WordPress than if it was built on Squarespace or all the other ones. Now, to Jaleel's point as well, fortunately, those other tools have progressed to the point where if you wanted to have a .com and use your own domain, you can mask. In other words, you can have a Squarespace and use your own domain, use your mywebsite.com versus using something that looks amateurish. But I totally agree with Jaleel on that point. If I see that your business is using some generic domain name that you haven't even invested in a proper domain name, I even go further. This is how bougie I am. I'm so bougie. If you're still using Gmail, I don't think you take your business seriously.
Oh
Now you
wow.
might be if you might be using Gmail, because here's the thing. Here's the funny part. I use Gmail, but you can't tell I use Gmail. Jules at hivehubhq.com on the back end is Gmail. But on the front end, if I tell somebody what my email address is, I'm not telling them Jules at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's just me being bougie. Totally up to the person. Totally up to you, the user, how far you want to go with that. But I totally agree with Jaleel, and I take it even a step further.
So let's toss them a gem because I do the same exact thing. Are you doing email forwarding?
No, I actually man, that's something I might have to do maybe a YouTube video on. what I do is a little bit different than forwarding, because with forwarding alone, all that happens is when the person sends the email to that address, it gets forwarded to yours. So now if you wanted to reply to that email, you'd still kind of be replying, essentially you'd still be replying from your Gmail, and that's what they would see in your response.
Right.
Versus, if the method that I use, or whatever the case. So is there a bell ringer happening in Slack? I just seen something.
Oh yeah. I was literally just looking through my email and just saw that.
We might have a little bell ringer. We'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
Huh? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I have to go get the bell though.
I'm gonna throw this last one out there, and then we'll we got to do a little bell ringer for sure.
Okay.
Last one, MailChimp. What is MailChimp for? MailChimp essentially, long story short, is for email marketing. I've pressed Jaleel about this hard body from the beginning. Collect emails. I tell everybody this: collect emails, and or phone numbers. But either or. Why MailChimp? So, and again, MailChimp is for email marketing. Has a free version, has a paid version. Now, you might think, hey, I can just email people from my Gmail account. This is different. We're talking about email marketing. We're talking about sending out one email campaign. Let's call it a campaign. Sending out one email campaign to 100 people. Doing that from your Gmail just is not feasible. MailChimp is a free tool, email marketing service that allows you to manage your mailing list, allows you to create your mailing list, allows you to collect emails. If you're starting from scratch and you even want to use MailChimp as your web page, because MailChimp has a service where they basically, from A to Z, from the web page to the email marketing, all self-contained within MailChimp. That's even an option. And I've seen people, do 6 figures with just that alone. That's a whole nother subject. But MailChimp, number 10. At some point, if your business is scaling as it should, or if you even want to set your business up to scale, MailChimp is a tool that you need to take advantage of. If not MailChimp, there's other tools out there. I'm just throwing MailChimp as one of the most simplest ones to start setting up, email campaigns and all sorts of stuff like that. Now, I just want to throw 2. I know I said 10, and we just ran through 10. I got 2 bonus ones that deal specifically with a business that's gonna scale out. Where right now you're just a solo entrepreneur, but you want to set it up so that you can then expand and collaborate with either your team or with other entrepreneurs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 2 things: Slack, Trello. Slack from the very beginning. Again, full transparency. If I remember when me, Jaleel, and Anne Marie very first linked up in the back rooms of the back channels of what do you call it? Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
Off rip, I said, guys, this messaging back and forth on Bigger Pockets, it's not going to work. We got to use Slack.
Yeah.
And at first, everybody was like, "What's Slack? What is that?" Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking back, you understand.
Yeah.
Looking back, does it make sense why Slack was useful?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Slack is a tool that to any entrepreneur, whether or not you have a team that you're working with or not, I suggest they get Slack just so that they can be ready instantly the very first second that you start collaborating with other team members or even other entrepreneurs. Slack is going to be a very useful communication tool, as is Trello. Trello is going to be very useful for task management and so many other things. It's almost limitless. Right now, I'm using both of those tools, Slack and Trello. Pretty much solely between those 2 tools, I'm running an entire e-commerce operation with a VA that's based out of Philippines.
And they're both free. So look at that.
And they're both free. And
Absolutely free.
Absolutely. Well, not absolutely free. They do have paid versions, but you'll get by the time you need to pay for it. It's a good. If you need to pay for it, you've got a good problem. Because that means you're using it to the extent that you're easily making some sort of return. You definitely have enough happening on either of these tools that you should pay for it. So that's that 1 through 10. I'll just run through them real quick. Hotjar, Canva, Hootsuite, or Sprout Social. Google Analytics, Google AdWords, that's number 5. Number 6, Facebook Business Manager. Number 7, SEM Rush. Number 8, Ahrefs. Thank you, Jaleel, for telling me how to pronounce it. Number 9, WordPress or Shopify. Number 10, MailChimp. And Slack and Trello as a bonus.
Nice. This was really informative, Jules.
Yeah, and also, can I just toss in one more thing that I think will be beneficial to anybody listening?
Go for it.
The last one will be a CRM, which is a customer relations management tool. And that one is, it took a very long time for me to even get started in it in either one of my businesses. But now that I have it, some kind of platform to manage your customers' information and to see your metrics for, how much you're doing a month, to see, what types of services you're doing, what types of services you're not doing. All that information is so important. And I did, I want to say I did almost $180,000 worth of business without one. And I know for a fact where I to have had my CRM in place, I could have done a lot more, because I could have started seeing what was selling, what price points I can kind of offer to customers to better help them convert. It's so powerful. So I don't make the same mistake as I did. Get a CRM early, get a CRM that you're comfortable with, and run with it.
100% agree. As far as CRMs, I thought about that as one of the top 10. I actually even thought about replacing either SEM Rush or Ahrefs with like a HubSpot or whatever. Worst case scenario, you can actually even use MailChimp as sort of a CRM. Worst case scenario, but yes, CRMs in and of themselves is a whole that's a whole beast that will open you up to things that you can leverage in your business and all the et cetera. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So that's
so
it,
would
guys.
that be
I'll land this plane. Top 10 tools, 10 must-have digital marketing tools for solo entrepreneurs. We could close out this actual session, but I do want to hear from Anne Marie what bell ringer we got on deck. But before we get into that, this is Jules. You can find me on right here on Clubhouse at Hustle All Day, or you can find me on Twitter at Hustle All Day. If you got any questions or you need help with anything that I talked about here, any one of these 10 tools, installing them, whatever the case may be, how to use them in your business, go to bookjules.com, BOOKJULES. I'll give you a free session. We'll talk about it. I love doing this. I give the game away for free.
And
Jaleel,
you're so good at it. So good at it.
I appreciate
it. Amazing. You guys can find me on Clubhouse at Wealth Fiend. That's like wealth and then fiend. And I'm here if you want to talk about. I love talking about business. I love talking about philosophy. I love talking about mindset. Anything you guys want to talk about, I'm here.
Bet. And Anne Marie, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook. Is probably the best place. Anne Marie Oreo or AI Real Estate Investings.
Perfect.
I have the bell ready.
Yeah, let's get into it. I didn't even look at the Slack. All I did is I saw Jaleel saying biggest payout, and I was like, is that what I think it is?
Yep. So just a little background. During this message, I got an email, saw it come up, just checked my phone, and it was a payout for Stripe, and it was a $1,485 payout, which is the highest one we've had to date for our cleaning company that we just launched a little past the earlier this year. So great progress to be made. It's not as much as our old business, but this one, it is much more money because I'm not doing any of the work. So This money is a lot better. I love it. Thank you.
Yes. That's a nice payout for a cleaning job.
Yeah, and to think that I didn't have to do a penny of it. But the thing is that we actually had another payout earlier this week. So that's the second payout we had this week, but that's the biggest payout we've had to date. So that I'm pleased. So
congratulations.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yo, Jaleel, listen, man, Entrepreneur Empire. I love what we're doing here. We're giving the game away for free. I'm dying to hear like basically how you built up your cleaning business to get to this point. Is that like a subject you'll jump onto in one of these next sessions?
Yeah, so if anything, I know for a fact I can break it down into a whole hour long. Like, I guess the next time I'm up, I'll break it down to a whole hour long process of how I started from end to beginning. So I'll do that for you guys.
I love it. All right, folks. That's what it is. Join us every Tuesday from 8 to 9, right here, 8 to 9 Eastern, right here on Clubhouse, Entrepreneur Empire, REI, Cracking the Code. Yeah, that's what it is. I appreciate you.
Good talking, guys.
All right. Nice talking to you guys. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.